Greetings of the day, students. On behalf of Radhika Classes, I am here to share with you some of the important questions of subject economics like 2 markers, 3 markers and 5 markers, which are expected to be asked in your March 2025 board examinations. Let us first look towards 2 marker questions, your section C. From the chapter number 1, the first question from chapter number 1 is which aspects should be taken into consideration while drawing the diagram or graph. Our second question is state the different types of diagrams. Our third question is write a note on data CD. Our fourth question and last question from chapter number 1 is give the question areas in using internet for studying. Now, moving ahead towards chapter number 2, difference between economic growth and economic development. This is one of the most important question. You should prepare this question and go for your examinations. Our next question is state any 4 characteristics of economic development. Now, here we complete with chapter number 2, moving ahead with chapter number 3. The first question is explain repo rate and reverse repo rate. Majorly this question has been asked in your board examination, so prepare it very well. Our next question is state the types of money. Our next and the last question from chapter number 3 is state the characteristics of inflation. Now here we complete with chapter number 3, moving ahead with chapter number 4. Our first question is write the names of quantitative measures of credit control functions of RBI. Next and the last question from chapter number 4 is difference between commercial and central bank. Here we complete with chapter number 4, moving ahead with chapter number 5. Our first question is explain meaning of absolute and relative poverty, which is also one of the most important question and you should not forget to do this question. Our next from chapter number 6, we have our first question as explain Prime Minister Rozgar Yojana PMRY. Yojanas are being asked in your examinations. You might have seen in your school examinations also. So do not skip this question. Next we have that is labor intensive technique is more applicable for India. Explain. Our next question is which 4 measures have been given by Shri Raj Krishna Committee report to know the nature and types of unemployment. Our next question and the last question from chapter number 6 is defective education system is responsible for unemployment. Explain. Here we complete with our chapter number 6 and moving ahead with chapter number 7. Why is the year 1921 identified as the year of Great Divide? Next question from chapter number 7 is what is meant by productive and unproductive population? Our next and the last question from chapter number 7 is define the town according to the census of 2001. Now moving ahead with chapter number 8, our first question is why agriculture is called backbone of Indian economy. Our next question is what is green revolution, which is also one important question. Do not forget to skip this question. Our next chapter is chapter number 9. First question is difference between internal and international trade. Our next question is state the main difference between balance of trade and balance of payment. Our next chapter is chapter number 9 and the only one question we have from chapter number 9 is that is short note on exchange rate. Our next chapter is chapter number 10 and our first question from chapter number 10 is what is SEZ? Next question is what are the ways through which electricity can be produced? Our chapter number 11 is what are the pull factors of migration. Here we complete with our 2 marker questions and moving ahead with our 3 marker questions, that is your section D. From chapter number 1 we have our first question as state the important aspects or to be considered while drawing a diagram and a graph. Our next question is give the caution area in using computer and internet technologies for studying. Our next and the last question from chapter number 1 is state the importance of diagrams and graph in economics. Now we complete with chapter number 1 and moving ahead with chapter number 2. Explain meaning and determinants of HDI. Next question from chapter number 2 is explain any 6 points of difference between economic growth and economic development. Students, please note, write the difference with point of difference. Moving ahead with chapter number 2, we have what are the aspects included in PQLI? Next question from chapter number 2 is discuss the three determinants of PQLI. Moving ahead with chapter number 4, we have our first question as explain the different types of deposits accepted by the commercial bank. Our next question is difference between a commercial bank and a central bank. Next question is list down the quantitative and qualitative tools of monetary policy of central bank and explain each in one sentence. You should even explain all of them. This is one of the most important questions to be asked in your board examination. Now, moving ahead with chapter number 6, that is defective education system is responsible for unemployment. Explain. Next question is explain the concept of disguised unemployment with example. Our last question from chapter number 6 is give the information about Manrega, MGNREGA. Next from chapter number 7, we have our first question as what measures have been taken to control population in India. Our next question from chapter number 7 is explain economic causes of high birth rate in India. Our next question from chapter number 7 is what is mean by birth rate? Discuss the social causes of high birth rate in India. Moving ahead with chapter number 8, we have our first question as explain the measures taken to increase agricultural productivity in India. Our next question is explain crop rotation, which is one of the most important question also. Next, agriculture sector is known as the backbone of the economy. Explain the statement. These are usually asked question in your board. Next question, next chapter we have, that is chapter number 9, and our first question is write a short note on exchange rate. Our next question is explain the factors affecting balance of payment. Our next question is difference between domestic and foreign trade. Next, moving ahead with chapter number 9, we have our first question as discuss the importance of small scale industries in India. Next question is write a short note on SEZ. This is one of the most important question. Students, please do not forget to learn this question. Next is explain industrial structure based on ownership. The next question is, and the last question, explain industrial structure based on investment. Now, moving ahead and directly jumping to chapter number 11. Our first question is write a short note on Indian Railway. Our next question is explain the importance of education. Our last question for 3 markers we have is write a short note on pull factor responsible for migration. Here we complete with our 3 marker questions and moving ahead with section E, 5 marker questions. 5 marker questions from chapter number 3. Our first question is explain the meaning of inflation. What are the main causes of inflation? Our next question is explain the origin and development of concept of money. Explain the functions of money. This is also one of the most important questions which are repeatedly asked in the board examination. Our next and the last question is define barter system and explain limitations of barter system. Now moving ahead and jumping directly to chapter number 5. We have our first question as what are the main indicators of poverty in India? Our next question is what are the main causes of poverty in India? Next question is discuss the steps taken by India to reduce poverty during planning period. Now moving ahead with our next chapter, that is chapter number 7. Our first question is define the term birth rate. What are the causes of high birth rate in India? And our last question is define the term death rate. What are the causes of low death rate in India? Moving ahead with chapter number 8, we have continuing with discuss the institutional and technological factor being the reason of low productivity in Indian agriculture. And our last question from chapter number 8 is discuss importance of industries in Indian economy. Next, we have from chapter number 11, our first question from chapter number 11 is explain in brief the measures to reduce the problems of urbanization. Next question from chapter number 11 is explain positive and negative effects of migration. Our next is Explain positive and negative effects of urbanization. These last two questions are very important from the point of view of board examinations. Here we complete with our 5-marker important questions. For any queries and doubts, do contact on the number given. For PDF, you can download in the description from the link given below. If you like our content, do like, share and subscribe. Wishing you all the very best, keep smiling and come out with flying colors. Thank you.